Hey, we gonna do here? We need to put it on the sheet. It's gonna be rough. For something, get it out of the rain. Get on the motorcycle, that's the quickest way to root motorcycle. You will stay away from it if they go for sale too. You always gotta clean your fuel system, which means gas tank, carbs, injectors, tires rot, seat rots.
That's something weird. Are we ready? You ready, Steve?
I am.
The meeting is now called to order. Good evening, everybody. It is 6:01 p.m. in the afternoon on May the 12th, 2020. And this is the meeting of the Durant City Council, which is now in session. Would we please stand, and James Dalton will give our invocation, followed by Councilman Mike Morris with the flag salute.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the day, the health you give us, the breath of life you give us, the freedoms that we enjoy as a country, Father. Lord, we just thank you for this community where we live. Lord, we pray for our leadership. Father, you give them courage to do what needs to be done. Give them the strength that they need, the wisdom that they need, Father. We thank you for, again, the country we live in, Father. We pray for those who have been affected throughout our country, both economically and physically. Father, we pray that you heal both. Lord, we thank you for every good thing again. We thank you for our families. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Will you join me for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We were all together that time. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Shear,
Here.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Here.
Councilmember Morris,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Here.
Mayor Ruby.
Here, we are all present. Steve Brittingham is on camera here, so all of us are present. Our first order of business is our consent items. We have consent items A through K. And as you all know, we can vote on these as one item, or you can pull out an individual consent item for further discussion. Does anyone wish to pull out any agenda item? If no one wishes to pull out anything, do we have a motion that we approve consent items?
Move approval of the consent docket.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Goodby.
Aye. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is our information item. Item number 3, these are the reports from the different departments. Does anyone have any comment?
I don't see Lisa here, is she? DIA? When I read her report, I found it interesting on proposals to the Department of Commerce had been put on hold. Can- So it's related to that and, no, okay. Yeah, okay. I didn't think so, but it kind of left a question
Gotcha.
of, okay, why is the department doing this? But I kind of figured it might be related. I appreciate all those reports, guys. They're kind of keep us up to speed on what you guys. Reference that I think we might want to address sometime in the future. So I'll just visit with you later on that, if that's
Yes, sir.
okay.
So get the city manager's report, and that's good to have also, kind of know what he's been up to. Oh. You probably leave out the good parts. Okay, if there's no more questions, we will move on to number 4, administration. Number A, under administration, consider approval of ordinance number 1897, creating a regional planning commission pursuant to 11 Oklahoma Statute 46-101. John?
Yes, ma'am. We had talked about this back at the workshop in February, and we kind of put it on hold with what was going on with COVID, but we're proposing to put an effective date of July 1st on this. It gives us subdivision authority in the county within 3 miles of the city limits. So it does give us some regulatory control in the county. So subdivision is the main idea. So.
And as I looked at that, that's all really by state statute or by.
Yes, sir. 100%.
So it was kind of in place for us as far as,
Yes, sir.
but county commissioners have they voted on this or do they?
No, sir, they do not have to vote on this. Commissioner Boyer and I have had numerous discussions on this, and he's on board.
And I believe we may be the first city to do this, right?
I have done a lot of asking, and no city in the state that I've found has done this. Oklahoma County does it, Tulsa County does it, but no city has done this yet. And the law's been on the book since 77, if I'm not mistaken. So
But it is a partnership really, isn't it? Or is it not? Or
it is, because you have the chairman of the county commissioners sits on the board and the
Yeah.
county engineers sit on the board. Yes, sir.
well,
City
I'm
Manager
encouraged
John,
that-
the way I understand it, this gives us no responsibility for the infrastructure of the subdivision, correct?
That's correct.
Are there any questions?
I move approval of ordinance 1897. And I don't have everything here in front of me. Is there a? emergency?
There is not an emergency clause.
Move approval of ordinance 1897.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Item number B, consider approval of recommended streets for improvements and authorize staff to solicit bids for the improvements.
You have a list of streets that staff has gone over and recommending that we make improvements on quickly. Staff will prepare the bids and the documents for that to be done. It's about $2 million worth of street work, if I remember right.
And I might add that it adds up to 8.2 miles of streets. And I hope everybody's as excited as I am. I'm going to miss hitting all those potholes, but it's going to be really nice to have some of these streets overlaid so we don't have to have too many complaints any more than normal.
It may not, I don't know if it's in order right now or not, but it's, and I'm encouraged that staff and city managers work on this, but kind of as we go along, particularly on, I know on Second Street from Main to Evergreen, we left the bricks, the original bricks. As we consider a third or fourth or maybe one or two more streets, those bricks are still there. And we might, I think of train depots that are gone, and once things are gone, they're gone. And I'd encourage us to consider the historical value of some of the downtown streets as we.
You probably really don't want to know my opinion. I would like to uncover those streets that have bricks and exactly what you're talking about. So
I agree with that.
Jerry, I agree with you 100%.
I do too.
Thank you. Well, I think there's a consensus that it's worth
it's different. It's historical.
the future.
Preserve it.
Yeah.
If I might offer a suggestion, we could go ahead and start looking at maybe the cost. Because it costs more to do that than it does to mill and overlay. Because you've got to clean the bricks, right? You can't just scrape them off or you're going to destroy them. And so maybe I could come up with an estimate of a cost for a block and bring that back and just see what it looks like. I know that there are at least second, third's already open. I'm not sure if Fourth has bricks or not. I know Maine does from Katy all the way to Fourth as well. And then there's also some on Evergreen here. So we could bring some cost estimates to you.
Sounds like a plan, Marty.
Yeah, great.
That would be good. Okay, do we,
We
any
need a
more?
motion on that?
No, we need a motion on item B.
That's
we
what I'm
have-
saying. I move we approve the recommended streets for improvements
Okay,
and authorize staff to move forward.
we have a motion. How about a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson, Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Didn't hear you, Steve.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is number D. Consideration to approve change, am
Think
I on
we
the right
skipped one.
one? I think I missed C. Number C, consider approval of resolution 2020-17, extending the state of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Any discussion?
What this resolution does is extends it to the 28th, and it still keeps us in line with the state's recommended reopening program. So
I think I heard a snippet of the governor's speech. We're in a position to, I think, move into phase 2, but I don't remember the date.
14th,
But I guess there'll be an official word on that as far as.
that's my guess. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for the motion.
Move approval of resolution 2020-17, the extension of it.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, item D, consideration to approve change order number 2 to W Brown Enterprises, Inc., contract agreement C 2019-32C in the amount of $9,496.20 for Tubosec Durant, Inc., utility infrastructure improvements related to 17488 CDBG ED project C-2019-32. Miss Becca.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And Mayor, I'm sorry. I should have just stopped you right there because I need to ask if we could consider G first and then D.
Okay.
And I just received a phone call from Commerce. I had to step out and I would like to do that if we could, and then I'll explain
Okay.
why.
So we need to go to G,
Yes,
item
ma'am.
G. Okay, item number G, consideration to approve pending budget and grant contract modification for Tubosec Durant, Inc., water and wastewater infrastructure improvements, 17488 CDBG ED project C-2019-32.
Okay. Now, before the meeting started, John approached me and asked me if I had a documentation or had some documentation for you. And I said no, because the conversation I had with ODOT before I came was not the one that I just had with them. So, and Brandon, this is going to involve you, and I'm going to try my best to explain. We were awarded $939,366 for Tubosec, which included the water, wastewater, infrastructure improvements, excuse me, and engineering cost. And involved with that is the railroad bore. But because our construction contract came in significantly lower than what was originally estimated, and was quite a bit of money that was not being utilized, Commerce reviewed our project, and this has never happened before, and Brandon could agree to that. I've had a conversation with him that the grant contract is proposed by Commerce to be reduced to fit in the construction contract as well as the change order that's at D, and to allow us a little bit of 15% contingency, Brandon, for the railroad bore if there is a need in case they hit rock or something. And so let me look at this total amount. So with the change order that we're going to present next and the $9,900, that would be the 15% of the railroad bore cost of $66,000. They're going to allow us to increase the amount that they were budgeting by $19,000, or lowering $19,396.20. We need to move forward with approving this because until we approve the budget modification, we cannot request our grant reimbursement. I tried to go to bat for us this afternoon because I wanted them, just requested that they just leave our grant contract as it was approved, as awarded. And at first that was considered, but this last phone call, that is what they are requesting. So I know that you don't have anything in front of you, but what I'm going to request of the council is that you approve it, and then contingent upon maybe John and I looking at it further and seeing if this all matches with our dollars and we can get everything done within that amount. And the additional railroad cost that was approved months ago for the railroad to come in and do observation during the project, that is approved in this budget. And so more than likely, we won't have any additional cost. And I was told if there are additional costs for the bore, if it exceeds this $9,900, then that would be a rebid on that. So my recommendation is that you approve it contingent upon the city manager's final approval.
This
that
is
okay?
item G.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I can't help it, but I do. You've mentioned reduction or we're not asking them to reduce it, are we? We're asking them for the,
We didn't ask. When I went to Commerce with the request to allow us to use the CDBG funds for all the extra railroad costs from Union Pacific and Rail Pros, it had totaled over $30,000. And so they approved that. But because of our bid coming in so much lower than what was estimated, they decided to reduce our grant contract. And so I spent over an hour this afternoon trying to justify or question why.
so now we're coming back asking for the 9.
And they've agreed to approve that. I have that in writing.
Okay,
They're going to
you
approve
said
us.
you said something about 19,000.
It would be a total of 19,000. They reduced it down to an amount like 93,000 less than what our grant was funded for.
So
But now that we're submitting this change order, and then plus they're going to allow us a contingency per se for any extra costs on the bore itself, we can add to that reduced amount, the 19,000 and some change that I have in the email.
So are we saying, are we still saying fast forward till we're completed, the money will be there to do the things we need to do? Is that what we're saying?
With,
Are we saying that?
well, if you approve for an agreement that the grant contract is going to be reduced to adding 19,000 and some change to what was originally going to be the reduced amount, that's what it will be. I would still like to try, and we can still write a rebuttal for this and ask for reconsideration.
I just want to be sure that we're getting done with it.
Absolutely.
Whether that means a rebuttal or, I mean, I'm not sure how we should make a motion here for a budget modification.
That was my email this
Contingent upon what?
right.
Contingent upon,
I
Then
would
give
like to, for the council to allow John to discuss further with Commerce. And if we feel that there is some consideration, then we would bring it back to
Okay.
council.
Tom, you don't have a problem with that, do you?
Yes, Tom.
If Commerce's reduction was based on figures that we provided to them that were less than anticipated, are we still going to come out whole with this reduced amount from Commerce?
We'll
Thank you.
come out whole as long as.
As whole
there
as
are
we,
no-
as we anticipated before?
Well, per Brandon's estimate, we expected X amount of dollars and the contractor came in under, but doesn't mean that there might be some other issues. And I'll let Brandon address that.
Oh, we ended up, council, how are you guys?
Hi,
We-
Brandon.
We ended up with 6 bids on the project and 5 of the bids were all right at the estimate, a little over the estimate. They were all right around the estimate. But you had a local contractor that was already working on the steel fab project that already had his equipment out there. So he was substantially under budget. And if they hadn't have been out there already working, had their equipment out there, we'd have been up near the budget. And me personally, I think it's wrong that they would take this money back and say, I mean, what her email said, the last email I got from her basically said that any additional costs would be borne by the city, is the email that I saw from her. And I mean, there may have been additional correspondence since then, but I think it's wrong that if you hadn't got the good bid from a local contractor, they'd let you spend the whole amount.
And that was my justification today. Exactly what you said. Local contractor, he was already in the area. And I said, it's a good bid. And that's exactly the words that you had said to me as well.
I
We're
mean,
still gonna get the same project done.
Yes.
Is that right?
that's correct. The project's still the project. Regardless, even if it's been one of the higher bids, we're still getting the same project. The only risk you run is that if you hit rock on the railroad bore, and we still got a lot of line delay and a lot of project still left to complete. I just hate to see you guys send the money back, and I just wish they would just hold the money. I mean, hold it for another 30 to 60 days and we'd be done with the project.
Is there a way to make that contingency, to work in a contingency there if we do run into these extra costs?
Well, number one, Commerce doesn't allow a contingency. They're going to build in that 15% on the bore itself. In case you
I mean,
do,
15% of the budget's a statutory amount, right?
well, yeah, and that's what I argued. It's like, we're not even to the 15% yet, even with the change orders. Now, we could just table this. We have a little bit of time before I need to request funds before the end of the fiscal year. We could readdress it,
That's my recommendation.
and we'll draft a letter.
Okay.
We'll have more clarification to come back.
On G, I recommend we follow the city manager's recommendation and table. Now, we table, it's got to come back just like this, right, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I move we table item G. 4G.
4G, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. This item will be tabled. Now, we're going to have to go back to D, correct?
Yes,
Do I need to read that again?
doesn't matter to me.
Okay,
I think we're
thank you.
okay. This is, are you ready for me to proceed?
Yes, please.
On D, the change order is actually two different components. It was for a riser for the meter box or vault, and then an extra, some extra line and asphalt for an area up on Second and Cemetery Road, because the water line is actually on the opposite side of the street. So yes, I would recommend let's go ahead and approve this change order, because it has to be done. The project has to move forward. And then we'll address the funding with Commerce next few days.
Okay. Any discussion on this, or do we have a motion on item D?
Move approval of change order number 2 to W Brown Enterprises.
Okay,
Reference contract C-2019-32C.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. Item number E, 4E, consider approval of an agreement for professional services with Wall Engineering for street improvements. Mr. Brandon. How are you?
Good, Mayor. Appreciate it. I'm well. How are you?
Great.
This is the agreement for the project that we've been talking about for quite some time. It's engineering agreement for the survey and geotech and all the support services, which have actually already been completed. If you saw the drill crews out there, that the survey and geotech are already complete, but it's the contract for the survey, geotech, all the support services, hydraulic studies, design of all the projects, University in West Main is what you have in front of you. And we did board the streets all the way to Fifth, and there are bricks all the way to Fifth on West Main, from Katy all the way to Fifth is brick.
Yeah, I
We'll
saw
have to
those
replace
guys
those
there.
bricks.
Do what now?
We'll have to replace those bricks that got drilled.
Is there any discussion? Any questions for Brandon?
I've got a simple question, I think. Will this study carry over to any further paving we plan on doing, or is it just for what exists in this new proposal?
It was, the the geotechnical study was only in the areas that were paving. They drilled about 50 holes, and they're drilled every block or two for all the areas we're intending to pave. The report's pretty interesting. You can go to all along Main and University both for that entire extent and see a coring of what's actually in the ground. It's pretty neat to see. You can see over the years the various levels of pavement that have been put on
I
over the
think the
years.
asphalt's over a foot thick down on First and Main.
There's lots of, it's like this up near Larkspur, it's about this thick, and you've got areas that are this thick. I mean, it's just.
As a
all over the
kid,
place.
I used to step up to the curb. Now I step down to the curb.
Is this just the design for Main Street?
No, it's Main and University. But
Okay. On the streets that we're, on the university project, it's actually reconstructing the street, isn't it?
reconstructing and widening.
Okay, are we including sidewalks in this design?
Yes, we're gonna look at all the areas, and that'll be something we'll have to go area to area to see if it's feasible, but anywhere it's feasible, we'll definitely look at sidewalks. And what city managers directed us just to look at the various areas and kind of take it piece by piece as to where we want sidewalks. Of course, we'd like to see sidewalks the whole way, but there are places where it's expensive or not really feasible, but we'll get sidewalks where we can.
I mean, why would that not be feasible? Do we not have the easement for it?
Either easement or just cost.
Well,
And we have easement almost everywhere to put a sidewalk if we wanted it, but it's just a function of cost.
I understand it's expensive, and sometimes it's kind of like building a road to nowhere, but because of the councils before us and just decisions, I mean, at one time, we thought everybody was going to be driving cars and didn't need sidewalks. And this is where we are today. We don't have sidewalks. And I just think anything, we need to be thinking 20, 30 years from now. I mean, there may not be a real need for a sidewalk there, but if we don't put the sidewalk in now, it won't get put in any other time probably.
And talking about kind of the overall cost, maybe, and we could approach it this way if it, council's pleasure, but we could design it all with sidewalk, and we could bid it all with sidewalk. And kind of see the section by section cost for the addition of sidewalk. That way you'd know the cost for sidewalk if it's bid out like that. But we could do it that way if that's council's pleasure. Just design it all for sidewalk. And
I think we should design it all with sidewalk, and then even if we put sidewalks in as alternates, right? I mean, that way then when we bid it, we can figure out what we put in and what we don't put in.
And you may want to get the grading put in if you, at some point in the future, decided to come back with sidewalk, but then at least you would know, you'd have the option as a council to kind of, if there are areas that are difficult or expensive, to remove the sidewalk if you wanted to. Yeah, we can do that for sure.
I would like to remind everybody that there's a lot more than these 8.2 miles that need resurfacing. That should be considered, I think, in the overall plan. Not just think we're going to do these 8.2 miles and be done. So some of that sidewalk money, I'd rather put on top of the street personally.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about sidewalks, so we're completely rebuilding the street. I'm not talking about on the milling and overlay.
Right, Mr. Sherr's just talking about University in Maine at this
Yes.
point. Yes, sir.
I think it's critical too that not only for council, but for the public to know that in this engineering process, that the water, the hydrology,
Yes,
you refer to it as hydrology or hydraulics,
hydraulics and hydraulics.
engineering will have a great value to it in the lifespan of not only the street, but on days like today when it rains an inch and a little bit and, you don't have a river to go down. In order to, I just think that's a big part of this in the water control, wastewater, runoff water stormwater
And
control that this will include.
And it includes a full, particularly on West Main, but it includes a full hydraulics and hydrology study of West Main. And it'll involve the hydraulic consultant. We don't do that in-house. It's a hydraulic consultant, but they'll go downstream, kind of trace it downstream and say, in this location, without, getting in anybody's house or causing damage, we can take this much water. And they'll back that up all the way through the project. And it'll all be underground. All the drainage will be underground to inlets. And we'll take as much as we can down the creek without, causing additional damage. But for sure, all we can take will be taken underground.
It's on Main Street at First Street. Does this include the full intersection?
It does, yes.
I mean, like, I know a few years ago, they came in and milled and put some asphalt on top of it. Now it's pumped up again.
Now, what might go into a little bit more of kind of what you have in front of you. The design on University is from Larkspur to University Place where the new concrete starts. And then it's from Estelle to West Side. We're not going to do from University Place to Estelle because that's really good new concrete.
Yeah.
So it's in good shape. We're not going to do that extent. On West Main, it'll be South 9th to North 15th in one project. And the next project will be South 9th to Katy.
Okay.
Now, currently, we don't feel like in this first round that, depending on how the bids come in, we may not have enough money to do Katy to South 9th. We'll have to see where we are on budget. So this work order in front of you does not include construction, bidding, and all the other services from Katy to South 9th. So it'll be designed, but you're not actually approving bidding that yet. We'll have to come, once we bid the first 3 projects, we'll have to come back to council with where we are budget wise and see, you hope we come back and we have enough money to do that section.
Brandon, Maine from almost 8th to 9th, and then from 9th to 10th, surface wise is in really good shape, isn't it? I mean, 9th, the intersection of 9th from the project a few years ago is, I don't know what the hydrology part of it might need some attention, but a lot of that was done 20 years ago. And I guess what I'm trying to say is you said we'd have to look at the budget, but that South 9th intersection might not require as much money as we might be thinking, or one might think, if you really take a good look at it.
Yeah, and the nice thing about that intersection is that's where pretty close to there is where the drainage splits. It goes toward First Street one way and goes down to the cross drain there on the other way, going back toward Washington. So we won't have to change the grade a whole lot in there and not that much storm drain right in that area. But definitely anywhere that's in, decent shape, and there's quite a bit of concrete on that section too, if you look at the cores. So anywhere that's decent shape, we're going to do what we can. Now it'll kind of depend on what we're doing with the overall grade. Just haven't gotten there yet, but definitely those sections, we'll look at saving what we can, especially where there's new concrete.
Your recommendation, City Manager?
Is to approve the agreement.
Move approval of the agreement with Wall Engineering.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Brandon. Number F is consider approval of collective bargaining agreement with Fraternal Order of Police, FOP, Local 113 for fiscal year 2020-21 and authorize the mayor to sign agreement or take any other appropriate action. Ms. Kara.
FOP and city have agreed to roll the 1920 contract into 2021 with a provision stating that if the other city employees receive a cost of living increase, then negotiations will be opened back up. And the implementation of a compensation plan does not apply to that.
Are there any questions? So basically, we'll have the same agreement that we had last year.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. We basically agreed to this in April in the middle of the pandemic when we didn't know what was going to happen. And so the FOP approached the city and said, because of the unknowns, we would like to do this. And so that's what we've agreed to. And I think it's a good call by the FOP.
Appreciate that, Chief, on behalf of anyway, but now, is this a new one-year contract or is it an extension or?
It's just rolling the current one-year agreement for 1 year.
Okay.
By law, we can only have 1-year agreements with the bargaining units.
Are there any questions? Don't run off yet. Are there any questions for Ms. Kara? Any
Move
discussion?
approval of the bargaining agreement with the FOP.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Item G, we've tabled. Item H, consider approval of Resolution 2020-18, adopting the 2020 Records Retention Manual of the City of Durant pursuant to 11 OS Section 22 and providing for annual supplements.
This is a project that Cindy's been working on, I believe, since 2016.
Yes.
And with Brenton, the new IT director on board, we were able to look at some different things. And with Tom's input, this is what we have for you. I believe it's 51 pages. State allows us to set different time periods for how we maintain certain records, and some are mandated by state. So this is based on the Oklahoma City model. So it's been tested.
I printed all the pages out, but I didn't bring them with me, but it was a lot of pages being printed out. But do we have any discussion or any questions?
I move we follow the city manager's recommendation and appreciate the work of the city clerk for 4 years. And hang on, I got to find my place again. And adopt the 2020 or resolution 2020-18, adopting the 2020 Records Retention Manual.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson, Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Number that brings us to number I, an ordinance amending the employee retirement system, defined benefit plan for the city of Durant, Oklahoma, providing retirement benefits for eligible employees of the city of Durant, Oklahoma, providing for contributions by participants, providing for employer pickup of mandatory contributions, providing for repealer and severability. Say that right. It's a hard word.
So the next two items, they are pertaining to the same thing. Once a year, we have an actuarial done, or actually OMRF has an actuarial done on our plan. And this past year, the criteria for how that was conducted was changed specifically for life expectancy. So they've increased life expectancy, which resulted in it's going to cost more to keep the plan funded because you will have to pay individuals for longer. Currently, we have two funds, the defined benefit and the defined contribution. The defined benefit is the pension portion, and the defined contribution is only the employees contribute to that. To make up for the increase, we currently, the employees contribute 3.5% into the defined benefit and 1.5% into the defined contribution. To make up for the increase, we would like to reassign the 1.5% into the defined benefit because the mandatory amount is 5%. I'm sorry. Would you like for me to start over?
No, I think you're right there. The 5% is what the defined benefit requires now, right?
Well, the defined benefit, we say what the defined benefit requires. Now, we haven't changed the amount that goes into the defined benefit in years, at least 10 years. That's how long I've been here. So
That's the 3.5%.
that is the 3.5%, which isn't really realistic anymore. I had Chris Watley with OMRF. He's our plan advisor. He sent me over what other cities that are our size, what their plans require as far as, or what the cities require their employees to contribute. And our overall contributions between the city and the employee is going to go to 12.61%. And all of the cities that were around that range, the employees were contributing around the 5%. So the reason that we are reassigning the 1.5 instead of just increasing employees' contributions is because they can still contribute into the defined contribution optionally. And if we just increase the defined benefit, it would affect their take-home pay. It would decrease.
So there's a chance for it to be a wash if they
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
But what's our participation percentage on the defined contribution? Does everybody participate in that?
Right now, the 5% is mandatory, 3.5
No.
goes into,
No,
You're talking about the city's portion?
no, the defined contribution.
the city
Not the
doesn't
benefit.
contribute anything into the defined contribution,
Right, I know that. But they're doing 1.5%.
right?
How many employees? Do all employees have to, after a year's employment or whatever, automatically enrolled or whatever?
Everybody has to, yes, everybody right now participates in the defined contribution.
But we're saying now maybe they don't have to?
We're going to make it optional because the mandatory amount is 5%. The city has opted to split that 5% between the defined benefit, which is 3.5%, and the defined contribution, which is 1.5%. So the mandatory amount for the employees stays the same. Everybody is still contributing 5%. It's just where those dollars are directed is changing. It's all going to go into the defined benefit, which is the pension, which we are required to fund. And if they feel that they want to continue to contribute to the defined contribution, they can contribute whatever amount they would like.
Is the OMRF our managing person for the
Yes, sir.
defined contribution? plan?
No.
Who is that?
OMRF partners with Voya now. They don't even administer it anymore.
I hope we're not getting away from the defined contribution portion of our retirement options for the employees.
Well,
That's for those that maybe don't know, very similar to like your 401k and many of the employers throughout the country. And a lot of them went from the defined benefit to the defined contribution arena.
it was probably cheaper for the employers to do that, yes.
Well, but then they match. I mean, There are those that if they'll match up to 5% or, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever and the employees can contribute up to a percentage of their total gross salary, but
Right.
it's neither here nor there. I'm hoping we continue to promote the defined contribution
Right.
portion of it.
And maybe
as
there
well.
is, I believe that the whole fund needs to be looked at. We need to sit down with Chris Watley and really look at what's beneficial to the employees and to the city, because it hasn't been done. You can't, I don't think that, in the last 10 years that we're in the same position that we were then. And I think it needs to be looked at, absolutely. But in the meantime, this will prevent people's pay from decreasing, and they absolutely can continue to contribute to the defined contribution.
So that would be the advantage of doing this, would be to allow their pay to keep from
It-
being
Well,
decreased and,
yes.
okay. Is there any,
Well, it would if they chose to continue the 1.5% in the defined contribution.
Right, but that would be up to them. That
They'd
wouldn't
be
be
putting
us.
more in the other one, still putting the same year.
Right.
But that's still all tax. Free is not the right word, but
Pre-tax,
exempt,
not taxable income,
tax deferred. That's
tax deferred. Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
any further discussion? Any other questions? Do we have a motion on item I?
It is itemized to do
So
the
item
3.5
I
to
is the defined benefit. It's making the change to increase the contribution percentage to 5%.
Okay,
That's
Instead
not
of
what
the
it says,
3.5.
and this is a little bit vague. Should we not have this a little more specific? Telling us
There
what we're
is
voting on?
a ordinance and a joinder agreement. So
Do we just need to approve the amendment?
the ordinance.
There's not a number.
Yeah, it's not on the item.
I don't know.
Or I don't have,
it's on down the,
Is there
oh,
Okay.
it's not.
No, ma'am.
no, because it's not.
move
effective
approval
immediately.
of amending ordinance 1905 as presented?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson, Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby,
Aye, motion carries. Item number J, an ordinance amending the employee retirement system defined contribution plan for the city of Durant, Oklahoma, providing retirement benefits for eligible employees of the city of Durant, Oklahoma, pertaining to plan designation, providing for repeal and severability.
This is the defined contribution, and it is reducing the percentage from 1.5% to 0 voluntary.
Optional?
Yes,
Can they put in more than
They-
1.5?
yes.
They can put in, yes, sir, what they want.
And there's a limit, but up to the,
whatever.
Yeah, I want to say it's like up to $33,000 is the limit for, so.
A year.
Okay.
is that, what ordinance is that? Is that
1906.
1906.
Do we have a motion to approve ordinance 1906?
Motion to approve the amendment, ordinance 1906 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson, Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby,
Aye, motion carries. We will Item number 5, we now move into the public hearing section of the meeting. Number A, under public hearing, consideration PC 2020-05, a final plat for Pecan Creek located at 49th Street and Kimberly Road. Miss Danielle.
Good evening. Yes, this is for a final plat. It went through planning commission a couple different times. The first time we had kind of some confusion with getting the actual plat in so that staff could review it. However, staff has reviewed it. There's some street issues, but the street supervisor was okay with approving the final plat with the condition that the streets get fixed properly within a reasonable amount of time. They've already been working on it. I have not been able to talk to the applicant recently to see where they're at on that, but he's been working on it for the last month or so of getting it done. So there's not any concern with that. And the applicant agreed that he'd get the streets done and get them done right, because there's some cracks and things like that James Young found. But he was okay with moving forward with getting the final plat approved.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against the public hearing number A? If so, would you please come forward? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Would anyone like to speak? If not, then we will call for discussion or a vote on public hearing number A.
How would the motion need to read for just contingent upon the street superintendent's approval, or for this, how would that?
You could do that, or you could just have it as an approval, because we can not release there's certain things that we can do at a staff level of not releasing meters and things like that before it gets too far down the road.
There's also a 1-year warranty period on their infrastructure anyway. So we hold them liable for that first year after we approve the plat.
So just a consideration.
Steve, excuse me. Steve, can you hear?
Mayor, I could not hear Marty.
Yeah, Marty, would you step up to the mic?
Steve, I was just reminding them that there's a 1-year warranty period on all the infrastructure that they are giving us in this plat, whether it's water, sewer, streets. So we hold them accountable to that year for the first year anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I move we approve PC 2020-05 as the final plat for Pecan Creek.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, under our public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 1902, rezoning for the property located on the northeast corner of Wilson Street and 49th Avenue from A1 General Agriculture to R1 Single Family Residential with an emergency attachment.
This is an applicant came forward with wanting to do a rezoning. The hope is to do a lot split as well, to break off to where it's 1 acre piece. So that's why we have to do the rezoning, because it's currently ag, and all ag has to be 5 acres or greater. He's hoping just to build a residence there and just have his home placed there. Planning Commission did approve this, and there has not been anybody contacting the department at all.
Danielle, this was the piece of property that had the little extra part that
Yes.
nobody owns, or we can't find.
Correct. You
Okay.
are correct. Yes. Yes, that piece.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak for or against? If so, you need to come forward. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Anyone else? Are we ready for discussion? Are we ready for a vote?
I'll make the motion that we approve ordinance 1902.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Section 1, Danny. Section 1.
Section 1.
Yes, section 1, sorry. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would a clerk please would you please call the vote or record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. We will now vote. Do we have a motion on the emergency clause?
I'll make the motion that we vote on the emergency.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember
Aye.
Tomlinson, Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. The third item on our public hearing, item number C, consideration of ordinance 1903, rezoning for property near the intersection of South Ninth Avenue and Big Lots Parkway from I-2 medium industrial to C2 highway commercial recreation.
This is the, Choctaw Nation is the one who's applying for this. They are, that piece of property is currently going through the process of being put into trust. It's not quite there yet, the last we heard. That's why they're coming in for rezoning, and they wanted to kind of do it the right way to begin with. They're wanting to put a daycare facility out there, but with it being I-2, you could not place a daycare facility in industrial zoning. So that's why they had to go and do the commercial zoning. Again, Planning Commission did recommend approval for this, and there wasn't anybody contacting the department either way.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak for or against? Does anyone wish to speak? Does anyone have anything to say about this? If not, then we will consider a motion for a vote.
I make the motion, we vote on ordinance 1903. Approved.
Section 1.
Section 1.
We have
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would a clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson, Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye, motion carries. We need a motion for the emergency clause.
Make the motion, we vote on the emergency clause.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. Motion carries, and the public section is now closed. Public hearing section is closed. Item number 6, new business. Is there any new business? If there's no new business, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Make the motion, we adjourn.
Thought we might have to just stay here and party. We have a motion for adjournment. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Councilmember Shear,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Morris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brittingham,
Aye.
Mayor Groby.
Aye. We adjourned. We will now let the record show it is 7:04, and we now will move into the Durant City Utilities Authority. Will now be called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Shear,
Aye.
Trustee Tomlinson,
Here.
Trustee Morris,
Here.
Vice Chairman Brittingham,
Here.
Chairman Groby.
Here, we have a quorum. We will proceed. Order of business under number 1, consent item. Number A, consider approval of regular minutes of April 14th meeting, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve the consent items. Or item.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Now second.
Okay, would the clerk record the vote?
Trustee Shear,
Aye.
trustee Tomlinson,
Aye.
trustee Morris,
Aye.
vice chairman Brittingham,
Aye.
chairman Groby.
Aye. We've approved the minutes. We'll move down to item number 3, information items. If anyone has any questions or comments about any of those, you may do so at this time. If not, there's nothing under administration. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Make the motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Trustee Shear,
Aye.
trustee Tomlinson,
Aye.
trustee Morris,
Aye.
vice chairman Brittingham,
Aye.
chairman Groby.
Aye. We are now adjourned from the Utility Authority. It is now 7:06, and we will call to order the Durant Airport Authority. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Trustee Shear,
Here.
trustee Tomlinson, trustee Morris,
Here.
vice chairman Brittingham,
Here.
chairman Groby.
I'm here. So anyway, under the first order of business is consent items. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the consent item.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Trustee Shear,
Aye.
trustee Tomlinson,
Aye.
trustee Morris,
Aye.
vice chairman Brittingham,
Aye.
chairman Groby.
Aye, motion carries. Under information items, the airport manager monthly report. If there are no questions, anyone have any questions?
I do.
I knew you would. Okay,
Where are we on the fuel situation? 100 octane low lead.
Just to kind of give you an update, the last month we talked, we'd located a tank in Ohio. And since then, any tank has to be approved by the Oklahoma Corporation Commission to vend fuel. We employed Lochner, a engineering firm, to engineer the placement of the tank and to make sure that tank will comply with OCC regulations. We don't want to spend $160,000, $180,000 and then find out that that does not comply with the OCC regulations. And initially, when they did that examination, they found some deficiencies that they're working on. Lochner with the tank company to see if the modification can be made so that that tank will pass the OCC certification, which has slowed us down. That plus the actual COVID situation as well has kind of got everybody running a little bit behind, unfortunately. So that's kind of where we are on the tank. We also were working on a fuel truck, Shell, the brand Shell, who will do avgas for us. They're requiring a modification for some of our electrical wiring and some of the things to bring it up to speed so that there's no risk of a spark or something like that, because 100 low lead, Roger can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the flash point on that is like minus 58 degrees. So that's a real volatile fuel. The other thing they're wanting to do before they'll do a truck to truck transfer is what it would be required to do is they're going to want the fire department to sign a waiver and stand by on those instances when they have to refuel that truck. And again, that's a safety reason for doing that. So that just kind of gives you an idea of where we are right now. And I don't know, do you have anything more on that, Raj? Okay, but that's kind of where we are on it. So we want to get it there quicker than as possible, but it's just, you can't rush forward with it until all these safety measures have been met.
But the engineering firm is talking to. the
Yes,
tank-
LBR,
tank
which
company.
we used for other engineering at the airport, were not qualified or did not do fuel tanks. So we had to seek another firm, which Lochner is the firm that we chose to go with. And they've been good to work with so far, but it, again, we're going through a lot of hoops where government is closed in a lot of cases too, which has also slowed down that process. Unfortunately, you know.
James, when we get this tank
Yes, sir.
is a storage tank, right?
Yes,
Storage?
sir.
How many thousand gallons?
10,000 to 12,000. I don't remember which it is, but it's
So will
one or the other.
will we dispense from that tank? Will it go to?
We will.
It'll go to a pump or
Yes.
dispenser.
What we've designed in this tank is where that tank will set is an above ground tank on skids. Now where they have the fuel island where the aircraft can pull up and self-fuel, the actual pump will be included in the tank. That way, again, you just pull out the hose and put it into the aircraft and begin the fueling operation.
Guessing there's metering that shows.
Yes, there'll be a kiosk, you know, where you put your card in and it meters the amount of fuel and rings the individual up for their total bill.
Cool.
So it will allow self-service for the 100 low lead avgas, which is desirable.
But will we be able to assist, or do we assist with that?
We
The fuel.
haven't in the past, the way that it was done in the past, and I think Marty, they put a new kiosk out there couple of years ago, Marty, last year. And it allows that aviator, when he comes in day or night, with his card to go vend fuel in his aircraft. These are quite a bit different usually than your jet aircraft because they don't take on nearly as much fuel, number one, you know, as a larger jet aircraft will. So usually the pilot comes in and vends his own fuel. Mhm.
Are there any other questions?
James, I have an easy one for anybody.
Yes, sir.
Who is operating or the old big hangar these days?
It is Hangar 10 Aviation LLC. That is a corporation formed in Oklahoma with the principals being David Bray and Casey Duver.
I'd heard a local bank was taking it over. I just wondered.
I have not heard that.
Can they do that? A local bank?
I think Tom maybe
That's
has
lunch
more.
table conversation. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious.
The existing contract that's in place does allow them to sublet.
They could be leasing space to a commercial entity to house their plane, if a local bank has a plane that they want to park their, Hangar 10 LLC could lease them some space. That's a possibility.
When we did that agreement, that option was in there that they could sublet to anyone.
But basically, our agreements with Hangar 10, Hangar 10 still, right?
That's correct, sir.
Any more questions? Danny,
No.
that do it for you?
James,
Yes, sir, Steve.
got a quick one for you.
Go ahead, sir.
The $69,000.
Yeah.
How did we get that? And do we know what we're spending that on?
What we, the 69,000 is an app process that we've already filled out and sent in.
Okay.
The $69,000 can be used for operational costs at the airport. And there's a pretty wide scope where it could be used for capital type items. what we're choosing to do is to use it on capital expense items that on the operational items that we've spent in the way of purchasing fuel, labor, those sort of things. That allows us to get the money now.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we did a capital expenditure item, it's a performance grant, which means that we cannot get the money until we have performed, spent money, and then we're reimbursed for it.
Okay.
And like it is now, we have spent money for filling up the jet fuel tank, which is a 10,000 gallon tank. We spent money for salaries while we were even closed when we weren't generating income. So we thought that was our best bet, was to use that to recoup those expenses so we could get that cash pretty quick.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, James.
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
other questions? Since there's nothing under administration, how about number 5, new business? Do we have any new business? If not, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I move we adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote?
Trustee Shear,
Aye.
trustee Tomlinson,
Aye.
trustee Morris,
Aye.
vice chairman Brittingham,
Aye.
chairman Groby.
Aye. We are now adjourned. I knew you.